Hello, hello. My name is Jean Du Bois. That's spelled pronounced B-O-Y-Z. I'm a Christian counselor. I have a master's degree in Christian counseling and biblical studies. I specialize in trauma and recovery and cognitive behavior therapy, and I'm a certified Parakletos counselor. Parakletos is another word for Holy Spirit. And as a Christian counselor, I get to counsel Christians. Yes, there are times when Christians need counsel. We struggle, we have issues as well. And what better place to go than to a Christian counselor? Well, some things that always come up in counseling session is, why am I going through this? Why are they treating me this way? Why am I struggling like that? Why am I suffering? And so that's a question a lot of Christians have. Why do Christians suffer? I'm going to give you 5 reasons why Christians suffer. Reason number 1, that Christians suffer because of sin and rebellions. When we don't do what God tells us to do, we suffer as a result of it because God is trying to get your attention. Reason number 2, God has a plan and a purpose for your life. And sometimes God's plan may involve you, and God uses you in his plan to fulfill the promises that he's already made. So it may be in God's plan to use you in that manner. So God has a plan and a purpose for you. Reason number 3, sometimes we suffer so that we can get closer to God and see him from another perspective, the same as in the book of Job, if you read that. And then sometimes we suffer because of the bad choices of others, individuals that make choices, and we suffer as a result of that. And so another reason we suffer is to develop Christ-like character, because Christ suffered, and sometimes we suffer. We're going to talk about a young man named Joseph. In Genesis chapter 37 through 50, you'll find a story about Joseph. Joseph was a Hebrew young man. He had 11 brothers. He was the 11th child, and his dad loved him more. He was special. You know, some parents say they don't have a favorite, but his dad had a favorite, and Joseph was his dad's Jacob's favorite. And Joseph had a dream one night that his mom, his dad, and his brothers had to bow down to him. The brothers didn't like that. They became jealous of Joseph. And to top it off, Joseph's daddy gave him a special colorful coat. That made the brothers even more jealous. So the brothers was out working one day, and the dad sent Joseph to check on them. And the brothers saw Joseph coming. They said, now this is a good time to get rid of him. And so as Joseph approached, they had developed an idea how to get rid of Joseph. They had a pit. They took Joseph, ripped his coat off, and threw him down in the pit. And he had done nothing, but he's suffering. They actually threw him in the pit. And then later that evening, some salesmen came by on the way to Egypt. Somebody had the bright idea, let's sell him. They pulled Joseph out of the pit, and they sold him to the salesman on the way to Egypt. And so Joseph hadn't done nothing, but he's suffering, separated from his family, mistreated by his family. He went to Egypt, and he was sold to a master, and he worked faithfully for the master. His character was good. The master noticed that Joseph had work ethic and integrity. He could be trusted. And so he promoted Joseph to care for his house. Joseph served him faithfully. But the master had a wife. She liked Joseph, and she wanted Joseph to sleep with her, but Joseph refused to, because he was a person of integrity and he had ethics and he was loyal to his master. So the wife turned around and she lied to her husband about Joseph. And so the master put Joseph in jail. While Joseph was in jail, he's suffering again. He's in jail. Then he had 2 cellmates, and they had a dream. No one could interpret, and Joseph interpreted their dream. One was the cupbearer and one was the baker. Joseph told the baker, tomorrow they're going to kill you. And he told the cupbearer, you're going to go back to your position in the palace. When you go back, remember me, okay? Hope it happened. The next day, what Joseph said, it happened. The cupbearer forgot Joseph, though, when he got back in the courts. And so one night the Pharaoh had a dream, and nobody could interpret it. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph, and they went to the prison and brought him out of prison, and he interpreted Pharaoh's dream. And Pharaoh was so thankful. Joseph rose to a high position. In the meantime, there was a famine going on in the land, and Joseph's daddy and his brothers and his family needed to come to Egypt to get food. So they eventually settled in Egypt, and they didn't know Joseph was and they didn't even recognize Joseph. But Joseph recognized this. He revealed himself to him and he forgave them. So Joseph is a story of suffering and forgiveness. And so that's what happened. We suffer sometimes, but it's in the plan of God. We suffer because of the behavior of others, but God will rescue us and go with us through it. So as a result of that, God planned for his people was to keep them in Egypt as they grew as a nation, and they did because God used Joseph and his suffering. So God may be wanting to use you. He may be wanting to make you more like Christ, and Christ suffered for us. He may want to draw you closer so you can see him from another perspective like Joseph. You may be suffering because of rebellious and sin or bad choices. You may be suffering because it's a plan of God for you. So whatever it is, however you're suffering, God is with you. You have two choices when you start suffering. You can ask God to deliver you from the suffering, or you can ask God to go with you through the suffering so you can have his strength. So I hope I've said something that's helping you. If you're going through suffering right now, remember God has a plan and a purpose for you, and he can go through it with you. So make it a great Christian journey. You don't have to go through it alone. Take care. Bye-bye.